I wanted to really quickly go over just like how to thicken objects. Again, this is the random Goblin Slayer helmet that I have. And you can see that this front piece is flat. If you look at it from the back, it shows black because that's the sort of back of the face. It's the opposite directions the normals are pointing. So if you ever see stuff like that on your models where like part of it's just black, you want to fix that. And the other thing, if you look in here, you can see that there's no, it looks flat. There's no volume, there's nothing giving this really substance. So unless you're doing something like cards, you pretty much want to avoid this in your model. So this is the quickest, easiest way I've ever found to do something like this and give something thickness, is just to select the entire object and extrude the whole thing. And then if you grab this little blue axis here, you'll notice that when I change that, it's local translate Z if you're looking for it in the settings. But when you mess with that, it will thicken your model, and you can thicken it to the inside of the model if you need the outside to stay the same shape, or you can thicken it to the outside if it doesn't really super matter. So whatever number you enter into here is going to be based off of the units that your Maya is set to. So in my case, mine is set to millimeters, so if this is 8.190, it's going to move it 8.19 millimeters forward. Negative numbers are moving it backwards, basically away from the front of the face. And if that's the option you decide to go for, a negative number in the local translate Z, you're just going to have to do a mesh display reverse to make that show up correctly. Every once in a while that will cause some like weird rendering errors. If you smooth your model, that's the way you can officially tell like which way the normals are pointing. You should also be able to go to, what is it, display, has a display somewhere. For some reason I can't remember, yes, show, wait, what the heck? Somewhere in here. For some reason I'm spacing out and I can't remember where. Possibly display polygons. There's an option for normals. Face normals, yes. Great. And that should show you, theoretically, oh my god, they're so tiny. You can see here these silly, shaggy little green lines that are pointing basically towards out from the front of the face. So if there's ever a doubt of which way your normals are facing, that's a way you can check. And that, to clarify, my rambling before is display, polygons, and face normals. There's some settings where you can like change how large that displays and all that good stuff, like how large those little furs are, but yes. So if you ever, anywho, so that's been thickened. If you ever decide that the whatever thickness you set it to is not great, and you still have history on your object, what you can do is go into your channel box and find that little extrude face. And you should be able, if you scroll down, to find this local translate Z. You can then modify that. So this is, again, instead of being like -21, I've set it to be effectively, for my computer, 2 millimeters thick. And that would be, this is what I do a lot, again, for 3D printing objects because they need volume. This is also if you're trying to just, make the body of a pen or something like that. It works really well for like doing bottle shapes and weird stuff. So like you have something, like this. Let's just do, this is going to be the world's ugliest bottle. It's going to be great. Alright, so let's just assume that we have something like this. And I've deleted the top of this bottle, so this is hollow. What I can do, again, just grab the object. This one I'm going to scale it in just for grins. Sometimes this does behave a little bit strangely on 90-degree angles, so just want to watch out for that. But now we have a bottle with nice thickness, so it's a really convenient way to not have to actually go in and manually model the inside and outside of the bottle. And then because we have this extra little edge loop on the top, I can go in and, where's my screw tool? I can just push this out and scale it down a bit and get that nice little rounded part on the outside. And again, just do a mesh display reverse on that. Also, incidentally, and this is like a weird semi-related tip, I guess. If you're ever modeling stuff like glass bottles or wine bottles, a lot of times the bottom will have a little sort of divot or dent or I don't know what the heck it's called, but like some weird like glob like going upwards in it. Especially like blown glass or a lot of bottles will have that sort of variable bottom. So that's something to be aware of. It's something I specifically look for when grading stuff, because I'm weird about that. But so like something like that is going to make your glass look a little bit more realistic if you're doing that. So sometimes you do need to do a little bit more work to thicken things past just extruding. And the other thing to be aware of is that every once in a while, certain models are not ideal to use this technique for. So I'm gonna grab the same helmet I did before, the same piece I was using, hit plus to make my little gimbal larger. So you will notice again that if you do this, if you pull it out too much, it'll start clipping through itself. And that's just sort of something you have to be aware of. Like, you can fix it manually once you're done. If you really care, you can sort of go in and like merge a bunch of vertices together to ensure that they're not clipping through each other. It's a little bit tedious. I think there's better ways potentially to do something like that. But it is, again, just something to be aware of, where sometimes it kind of breaks down. It can be harder to fix depending on the model that you're using. Another example of that where it kind of just like makes your life harder sometimes is if we have, actually, you know what, let's just do a sphere. A grid. Alright. So it's pretty bad for details like this. So if we go through and we extrude this whole object, and if you pull it out, it actually works honestly better than I was expecting, until you start pulling it too far and then it again clips itself. Where stuff like this oftentimes gets weird is when you're actually like pushing it towards the inside. So a lot of times, like, I'll be sculpting a complicated face, something like that, and there's like a lot of weird wrinkles and skin detail in it, and I want that preserved, so I extrude in when I have to hollow the thing, and it gets like really wonky. You'll notice again it's sort of clipping itself, and it's just like doing some really weird stuff. If you push it farther, it gets even worse. And in this instance, this one is relatively simple. I should be able to just like delete a few edge loops and kind of like push it back to what it needs to be not broken. But on more complex meshes, again, like a full face or something insane, it's kind of but that's just sort of the way it goes. Sometimes just more work is required. But this is usually, honestly, where I start to make things thick on a specific thickness. I just use extrude and this will translate C. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to sort of talk about that because I feel like it's really helpful. And again, it is different. So really quick, if we do just make two planes really quick, I just want to illustrate the difference between extruding an object. So I was in object mode when I extruded this, and you'll notice that now it is a cube. There's a bottom. And this is going to be different than if I selected the face on this and extruded that and pulled it up. That never happens. I was going to say, this should have no bottom. Usually it rips the bottom out. But here we are. But just be aware that sometimes if you do have the faces selected, it won't put the bottom on, in which case just make sure you're in object mode. But apparently that's not a thing that happens all the time. Now I'm actually really curious, and I want to see if that happens. I'm pretty much done. Stay tuned if you have curiosity about this. This literally never works. Why is this sudden? Every time I'm like, look, this breaks things, it works, and I'm a little salty about it. Anywho, apparently face selection mode is working perfectly with this now, so who knows. But anywho, thickness on objects. It's important for 3D printing. It's important to make your stuff look realistic. Even paper has thickness. Yes.